The unexpected genius. Wait, did you just speak in French? The CEO asked, turning back in surprise. The janitor, mop in hand, nodded calmly. Oui, he replied, then added in Spanish, También hablo español. That's how it all started. A casual hallway encounter turned into a jaw-dropping discovery that shook the entire office. This isn't just a story about a janitor. This is about hidden potential, humility, and a CEO who decided to rewrite the rules. Let's take you through this unbelievable yet inspiring journey. The unlikely encounter. It was an ordinary Tuesday morning at Hensley Tech, a mid-sized software company nestled in the heart of downtown Chicago. The early sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the office lobby, casting a golden hue on the polished marble floors. Richard Collins, the company's sharp-suited CEO, had just wrapped up a tedious board meeting and was strolling back to his office, coffee in hand, mind already racing through his next task. As he passed the main corridor near reception, a curious scene caught his attention. Two visitors stood near the front desk, clearly agitated, speaking rapidly in French. The receptionist looked helpless, flipping through a translation app on her phone. A couple of interns hovered nearby, offering awkward shrugs. Excusez-moi, nous cherchons la salle de conférence C, one of the men said, looking increasingly frustrated. Before Collins could step in or call someone from international relations, a quiet voice chimed in behind him.
Vous cherchez la salle de conférence C? C'est au deuxième étage, au bout du couloir à gauche.
The French was flawless, natural, and confident. Collins turned around. Standing a few feet away was the janitor, an older man in a faded blue uniform pushing a cleaning cart. His gray-streaked hair was tucked neatly under a cap, and his expression was calm, almost amused. The French visitors instantly brightened. Merci beaucoup, monsieur, one said before heading toward the elevators. Collins blinked. He'd seen the janitor before, many times in fact, always punctual, always quiet. He was a fixture in the building, someone you saw but never really noticed. Did you just speak French? Collins asked, stepping forward. The janitor smiled politely. Yes, and a few others. Collins raised an eyebrow. How many exactly? 9, the man said simply, as if stating the weather. Something shifted in Collins in that moment. He was a man used to profiles, resumes, polished interviews. This man before him didn't fit any mold he was used to. What's your name? He asked. Martin Leclerc. Well, Martin, I think we need to talk. The two ended up in Collins' office 15 minutes later, steaming cups of coffee between them. Martin sat upright, relaxed but dignified. He shared that he was originally from Belgium, had moved to the US over a decade ago, and had taken on janitorial work for stability. Languages were always a hobby, he explained. They come easily to me. As he spoke, Collins learned that Martin also spoke Spanish, German, Russian, Mandarin, Italian, Arabic, and Dutch. He had no formal degrees, but read extensively, learned through immersion, and occasionally did freelance translations. Have you ever considered working in international communications? Collins asked. Martin chuckled. Not seriously. I've always been more comfortable behind the scenes, but I enjoy helping people when I can. It was a regular Tuesday morning at Hensley Tech, a mid-sized software company in downtown Chicago. The day had started like any other, with meetings, phone calls, and the usual hustle of office life. Richard Collins, the CEO, had just left a long board meeting and was walking through the lobby when something unusual caught his attention. Two European visitors stood near the front desk, speaking quickly in French and clearly lost. The receptionist looked flustered, trying to understand them with the help of a translation app. A few employees nearby exchanged confused glances, unsure of how to help. Then out of nowhere, a calm voice spoke up in perfect French. You're looking for conference room C? It's on the second floor down the hall to the left. The visitors smiled with relief. Merci beaucoup, one said gratefully, and they headed off in the right direction. Collins turned to see who had helped them. It was the janitor. Dressed in a simple blue uniform, pushing a cleaning cart, the man looked completely at ease. Did you just speak French? Collins asked, walking over. The janitor smiled. Yes, and a few other languages. Collins raised an eyebrow. How many exactly? 9. That answer stopped Collins in his tracks. He had seen this man for years, always quiet, always cleaning. but never once thought to ask who he really was. Now he was curious. "What's your name?" Malik Idris." "Come have coffee with me tomorrow," Collins said. "I want to hear your story." "Itarai." The next morning, the two sat in Collins' office, cups of coffee warming their hands. Malik looked calm, but there was a quiet strength in his eyes. "I'm 42, Malik began. "I'm from Morocco. Before coming to the US, I was a language professor at a university in North Africa." Collins blinked. "A professor?" "Yes, I taught French, Arabic, and linguistics, but then war broke out. I lost my brother and my home. I had to flee. I came to America with my wife and daughter, hoping to start over." Malik paused. "But when I arrived, no one recognized my degrees. I had no contacts. I just needed to survive. So I took the only job I could get, janitorial work." Collins listened silently, stunned. "I never stopped learning," Malik continued. "After my shift each day, I went to the public library. I read constantly, practiced my languages. I even taught online classes under a fake name, just to keep my mind sharp." Collins sat back in his chair. He couldn't believe it. "You mean to tell me we've had a genius working in our building, mopping floors, and no one knew?" Malik shrugged. "I didn't mind. I was grateful to have a job." But Collins did mind. This man's story, his talent, and his resilience left a deep impression. Over the following weeks, Collins started finding ways to bring Malik into more meaningful roles. At first it was small, helping translate documents, sitting in on international meetings, assisting with cultural training for staff. But soon, it became clear that Malik was more than just helpful. He was essential. Eventually, Collins offered Malik a new position, cultural and language advisor. He got a desk, a team, and a platform to use his skills fully. Malik's story spread through the company. The same employees who once walked past him without a second thought now greeted him with respect. People began to ask questions, to look beyond appearances. For Collins, the lesson was clear. Talent doesn't always come in a suit and tie. Sometimes it wears a janitor's uniform, and sometimes the most extraordinary people are hiding in the most ordinary places. And so, the janitor who once cleaned the windows now helped Hensley Tech see the world more clearly than ever before. It had been just a few days since Richard Collins, CEO of Hensley Tech, discovered the incredible story behind the company's quiet janitor, Malik Idris. What began as a chance encounter, Malik helping two lost French-speaking clients, had turned into something much bigger. Richard had listened to Malik's story over coffee the next morning. He learned that Malik, a 42-year-old immigrant from Morocco, had once been a respected language professor in North Africa. War had taken his home, his family, and his career. He had fled to the United States with his wife and daughter, seeking safety and stability. But with no recognized degrees or network, he had been forced to take a janitorial job, one that kept food on the table but buried his real skills. Yet Malik hadn't let go of who he was. After long shifts cleaning floors and emptying trash bins, he spent hours at the public library, reading, studying, and even teaching online language courses under a pseudonym. It was a story of resilience, humility, and hidden brilliance. Now Richard was ready to share it with the company. That Friday, he called a surprise staff meeting in the main lounge. Confused whispers filled the air as employees filed in. Some thought it might be an emergency update or a new project launch. No one expected what was coming. Richard stood in front of the crowd, microphone in hand, eyes scanning the familiar faces. Then, with a smile, he began. "Good afternoon, everyone. I called you here for something a little different today. I want to introduce you to someone you all know, but not really." He turned and gestured toward a man standing quietly near the back. It was Malik, still in his janitor's uniform, hands clasped nervously in front of him. "This is Malik Idris," Richard said. "He's worked here for over 4 years. Many of you have walked past him, smiled at him, maybe nodded hello, but few of you know his story." People glanced around, eyebrows raised. Some leaned forward. "Malik speaks 9 languages fluently," Richard continued. "Before he came to the US, he was a language professor. War took his home, his career, and much of what he had built. When he got here, the only job he could find was janitorial work, and he took it without complaint because he had a family to support and a life to rebuild." A hush fell over the room. Malik shifted slightly, clearly uncomfortable in the spotlight. But Malik never stopped learning. Every day after work, he went to the library. He read, he practiced, he even taught students online, anonymously, just to keep his skills alive. There were a few gasps. Others looked down, thoughtful. Richard paused for a moment before delivering the final line. Starting next Monday, Malik is no longer the janitor. He will head our new Global Communications and Language Training Division. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then the room erupted in applause. Some people were stunned. Others clapped louder than ever before. A few employees near the front stood up, starting a wave of standing ovations that spread across the room. Malik's eyes widened. He looked overwhelmed, unsure of what to say. Finally, Richard stepped aside and handed him the mic. Malik hesitated. He looked at the crowd, at the faces of people who had barely noticed him before, now cheering him on. Then he spoke, his voice quiet but steady. "Thank you, I only ever wanted a chance, just one chance to use what I know, to contribute. Thank you for seeing me." The applause came again, louder than before. After the meeting, employees came up to Malik, shaking his hand, apologizing for never asking about him, telling him how inspiring his story was. That day, something shifted at Hensley Tech. It wasn't just a story of one man's rise. It was a reminder to everyone that greatness isn't always loud. It isn't always dressed in a suit or sitting at a desk. Sometimes it's in the background, quiet, waiting, holding a mop. All it takes is for someone to notice. And Richard Collins said, Malik's rise at Hensley Tech was more than a feel-good story. It marked the beginning of real strategic change. After being promoted to lead the newly formed Global Communications and Language Training Division, Malik got to work immediately. He knew his role wasn't just about translating words. It was about building bridges between cultures, clients, and co-workers. Within a few months, he assembled a team of bilingual and multilingual support agents. These were employees who, like him, had been overlooked. People from various departments who spoke Spanish, Mandarin, Portuguese, and other languages fluently, but had never had the chance to use those skills at work. Malik trained them, gave them purpose, and put them where they could shine. He also launched internal language workshops, teaching employees simple phrases and cultural etiquette for dealing with international clients. Departments that used to rely solely on Google Translate were suddenly having fluid conversations with partners overseas. Employees felt more confident and clients felt respected and understood. One of Malik's biggest successes came when he helped the sales team close deals with clients in Germany, Japan, and Brazil, markets where Hensley Tech previously had little to no traction. His language skills, paired with his deep cultural understanding, opened doors that had remained closed for years. But Malik's impact wasn't just measured in numbers. It showed in the way people began to look at each other. Staff started paying closer attention to the people around them, the ones they had passed in the hallways for years without really seeing. That quiet security guard at the front desk? He used to be an electrical engineer in another country. The receptionist? She was a self-taught coder who had built 3 apps in her spare time. Inspired by Malik's journey, Richard Collins decided it was time to dig deeper. He launched a company-wide initiative called Hidden Talents. The idea was simple. Any employee, regardless of their job title, could anonymously submit a list of their skills, hobbies, or passions outside of their current role. The response was overwhelming. People came forward with backgrounds in graphic design, data analysis, music production, and even game development. Managers began looking at their teams in a whole new light. Suddenly, the person filing paperwork wasn't just an admin. They were a certified translator. The IT support tech was also a published author. One of the night shift custodians had years of experience in supply chain logistics. So what does Malik's story teach us? It's simple. Never judge someone by their job title. Beneath every uniform, behind every quiet smile, could be a story waiting to be heard, a depth of experience, a spark of brilliance, a life that once held titles, dreams, and talents most of us never stopped to ask about. For 4 years, Malik Idris worked as a janitor at Hensley Tech. He mopped floors, cleaned windows, and emptied trash cans. Most people barely noticed him. But behind the uniform was a former language professor from Morocco. fluent in 9 languages. Forced to start over in a new country after war changed everything. The day Malik spoke flawless French to 2 lost clients in the lobby, everything changed. Richard Collins, the CEO, didn't just hear the words, he saw the man behind them. That single moment of curiosity led to a conversation, and that conversation led to a decision. Malik would no longer work in the shadows. Promoted to lead Hensley Tech's Global Communications and Language Training Division, Malik went on to revolutionize the company's global outreach. But more than that, he inspired a shift in how people looked at each other. He became a symbol, not of charity but of potential. His story made others wonder, who else are we overlooking? Richard launched the Hidden Talents Initiative, giving every employee the chance to share their untapped skills anonymously. The results were astonishing. From engineers turned security guards to artists answering phones, hidden potential came to light. Departments were restructured, people were promoted, morale soared. But Malik's impact didn't stop at the office doors. Today, he mentors young immigrants, many of whom are trying to rebuild their lives just as he did. He teaches free language classes online and speaks at conferences about perseverance, resilience, and the simple power of being seen. He reminds people everywhere that opportunity doesn't always knock. It sometimes whispers, waiting for someone to listen. Richard Collins didn't just promote a janitor, he helped reshape a company's culture. He reminded everyone that great leadership isn't about making bold moves, it's about asking the quiet questions, the ones that start with, "Who are you really?" And all of it began with a few words in a foreign language. Itarai. Final hook for viewers. So next time you walk past someone who seems ordinary, ask yourself, what story are they carrying? What talent are they hiding? You might just discover a genius in plain sight. If this story inspired you, hit the like button, subscribe for more real-life stories that open your eyes, and leave a comment below. What hidden talent do you think is waiting to be discovered around you? Stay curious. See you in the next story.